Hey guys, fellow gardeners, exotic gardeners, palm nuts out there. It's that time of the year when you want to start thinking about protecting your container-grown plants or potted plants, especially if you live in a cooler winter climate. Now, our winter climate generally is pretty mild here, but every so often we can get a good freeze. So what people don't realize, what most people don't realize, that plants in containers are far less cold tolerant than if they were planted in the ground. So, for instance, Trachycarpus fortuna palm may be hardy to, say, minus 12 degrees Celsius or 10 degrees Fahrenheit in the ground, because the roots are down in the ground. They're, protected from exposure to freezing temperatures. But when they're in a pot, and these aren't Trachycarpus fortuna, these are sago palms, Cycas revoluta, they are fully exposed to the elements. So that is going to freeze solid in a bad cold snap. And if that freezes solid, it's not going to draw moisture to the top of the plant, and thus the plant will die. So if it got down to minus 12 degrees Celsius for even a day or two, I would say probably a couple of days, those would freeze solid, I'm sure. That's pretty cold temperatures. I'd say probably take a couple of days at minus 12 to freeze that solid. If that freezes solid, you can kiss those goodbye. And a lot of times they'll fool you too. These guys look at their plants after the freezes. Well, my plant was outside during a freeze and it did just fine. And they'll post pictures like a day after or a couple of days after the freeze. But it takes time for that, the freeze to show up on the plant. And then they slowly kind of turn brown and die. So what we do with these ones, and they stay out year round. I don't know, these have been out for about 5 years now.
Yeah, it's been about 5 years in pots.
So because they're close to the house, it's good. It's better. If you have them close to your building in this growing zone, we're in a northern zone 9A, and we have been that way since December 2008. December 2008, we fell into zone 8B because it was a bad freeze. But anyway, back to these. So what we do with these, I just bubble wrap these pots. I put a couple layers of bubble wrap around with them, or around the pot, so they can't freeze, and they're under an overhang. There's an overhang here over top of this accommodation. Wendy has 2 accommodations here. This is one of them. So we have Cycas revoluta palms, or sago palms, on either side of it. And like I say, 5 years, they are flawless. And look at the flush they've put out this year.
Oh yeah.
Because we've been hitting them with Miracle Grow. Okay, so those ones stay out year round, and I bubble wrap the pots.
Right.
The Phoenix date palm here that I grew from seed, I collected in Hawaii, that I put into the tiki hut.
Right.
The tiki hut is a covered structure, but it's not a heated structure, and just because it's so sheltered in there, they seem to do okay. So that is a Phoenix date palm, so that's going to get some overhead protection. And remember, if you're only living in a climate like this in the north, where you do get, or you're subject to winter freezes, think about your container plants. We've got a bunch more of them down here. This one I'm going to put in the basement. This is a Kenshi Palm. That one just goes into the basement, and it stays pretty mild in the basement. It probably doesn't get under 10 degrees Celsius in the basement, something like that. And these guys here, these are also in pots. So we have Yucca gigantea, and this is Trachycarpus latisectus. These also go into the tiki hut. They'll go into the unheated tiki hut. I just put a tarp over the front, and they're good to go. I like to squeeze these fronds up just to make some more room for the other ones. But this has been growing really good since we've been Miracle Growing it. This one goes into the basement. Right. That's a Strelitzia. And then let's go down to
Bird of Paradise. What's this one, Joe? This one.
That's when I dug out of the ground because
so
it's going so slow. That's Trachycarpus latisectus. It was so stressed. I had it at the back of the house for several years, but it was just so dry under the eucalyptus and cedar trees. So I'm going to plant it somewhere else. There's Martianus Trachycarpus down there. And then let's go to the lower sun deck. Follow me, Steve. This one here I put in the basement. Not in the tiki hut, because the rats have got in there before and they've eaten my last citrus tree.
Oh, we had a beautiful one.
Yeah, it was a huge one, and the rats ate them off. This Washingtonia goes into the unheated tiki hut. Okay. And just because keeping it dry, it does really well. So that's one of my seed-grown Washingtonia palms. Wendy really likes that one.
It's beautiful.
It's a really nice plant. So that goes into the tiki hut. Okay. And down here on the lower sun deck, remember these are only plants in containers, okay? These are extremely hardy palm trees. This is a Rhapidophyllum hystrix, the most cold hardy palm tree in the world. Now in the ground we have a lot of them, perfectly hardy, but it doesn't matter. Even if it's the hardiest palm and that pot freezes solid, you're going to have a palmsicle. It's going to be toast, right? So I don't want to lose it. Wendy and I don't want to lose any palms to cold weather. So better safe than sorry. I take these, and they also go into the tiki hut, the unheated tiki hut. It's got a Lexan roof on it. Wendy and I built it. It's a timber frame. And we stuff it full of all of these plants. The Phoenix, more needle palms.
Yeah.
The regular name is needle palm,
Yeah.
so that's the most cold hardy palm. And remember, don't let the roots freeze. If you're going to keep it
Exactly.
outside and you're in a colder winter climate, wrap the pot, put it close to the house, put it under an overhang.
Yeah.
Always protect the roots
Yeah.
because they're less cold tolerant. This goes into the tiki hut. This will go into the basement.
What kind is this one?
This is the phoenix we grew from seed,
Oh,
a date
okay.
palm.
Yeah.
Collected the seed in Hawaii, so
Yeah.
that's going to go into the tiki hut. And even the camerops here, Wendy's beautiful camerops, it's getting taken over by
It is.
wire
Wire
vine.
vine.
It's
Yeah.
a lot of wire vine on
Prolific.
it. Yeah, so anyway, that's going to go into the tiki hut as well. And these tree ferns, these are Australian
Oh,
tree
they're
ferns,
beautiful.
Cyathea cooperi.
Yeah.
And when Wendy and I went to Hawaii last winter, I put them in the basement. They dried out. They looked like they were completely dead when I got back.
Yeah.
Then I stuck them outside in the winter, right when we got back, and they actually started growing. You could see there was actually life in them, and now look at them. So these are beautiful, and I gotta water them. That's actually getting dry. These are Australian tree ferns, so they're less hardy. These I'm gonna put in the basement, or maybe the tiki hut. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
Yeah.
there's the Tasmanian tree fern.
So I wonder, like, okay, so they could be like an evergreen fern.
Oh, they're evergreen.
Yeah.
There's no doubt they're evergreen if it's a
But-
winter plant.
Yeah, but like you said, because, well, the water, they died back, and now look at them.
They were too dry.
They're beautiful.
So it's going to give them some rainwater that filled up
Yeah.
this. We had some rain, when was it, last week or so. So we'll give them this, and they're growing like crazy now. They're sending out
Yeah.
fronds. They're a lot faster growing than the Ixoni antarctica. This stays out year round, and I put burlap and bubble wrap in the center.
Yeah,
of it,
this
so-
one's not one that.
No, this can't.
Don't move
you can
that.
take it out. But this stays out year round, and I put burlap and bubble wrap in the center.
Yeah,
of it,
this
so-
one's not one that.
No, this can't.
Don't move
you
that.
can take it out.
The orchids.
It comes out when
Yeah.
it gets. Well, it goes in when it gets colder, and I usually stick it at the back of the house.
Back
but
of the house.
It's a pretty hardy plant. That's
Yeah.
Cymbidium. But when it gets too
Yeah.
cold, it's got to go inside the
Yeah.
house.
What's nice about that too with your orchids is that basically putting them into a darker space.
They bloom nice.
Yeah, they get their stalks. They start to get their flowers. So,
Yeah.
and what about the
Remember,
this one
folks,
here, Joe?
that goes inside too. That's going to
Okay.
go in the basement. So remember, the larger the container, the safer you are. So if you have a massive container, it's going to take a lot more to freeze it. But you have a smaller container, and you get some really cold weather, it's going to freeze that up a lot faster than something that's much bigger, right? So I always remember that plants in pots are less cold tolerant than if they were in the ground. Especially some of this marginal exotic stuff like palm trees, and if you had a camellia or you have bananas or whatever, protect the pots. Better safe than sorry. So this is winter protection for potted plants in, say, northern or colder winter climates. Plants that are out in pots, and these are on our upper sun deck. So what we have here is Olea europeana. Then we have gardenia. These actually stay out year round. Then there's more cycads. These are newer ones we just bought last summer. And bamboo. This bamboo is perfectly fine here.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
going to stay out
It'll
year
be
round.
fine.
We'll just put it underneath. And that actually was out last year too.
Yeah, the Daphne.
Yeah. So these I'm gonna keep out here for a while, and then I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
the weather. Just watch the weather. And when if it gets too ugly, I'm gonna put them into the tiki hut. They
Okay.
were actually in the tiki hut.
Yeah.
I think it was last year we put them in the tiki hut, and they're fine. So and we did step them up into bigger pots.
We did. Yeah,
So-
we did.
Yeah. So these are all plants that you have to watch that the pots
Yes.
don't freeze. Same with the ones that we
Yeah.
showed you on the lower one. This is gonna go into the kitchen. We'll put that in the house.
Yeah, that'll go in the house.
Yep. So that's how you do it, folks. And
And
this one
basically-
here, this is going to go. The Livistone is going to the tiki hut as well.
Okay.
Chinese fountain palm.
Okay.
Yep. So thanks for watching, and remember to protect your potted container plants so the roots do not freeze, because plants in pots are less hardy than plants in the ground. Remember that always. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more vids. Cheers.
Okay.
You can see it's growing, right? So.
Oh yeah.
So you can see here's a needle palm in the ground, fully hardy. It's actually still growing. Now that we got wetter and cooler weather, look at that. It's opening fronds
yeah.
still. So because it's not in a pot, the roots aren't exposed. you're never going to worry about this thing freezing to death. But if it was in a pot and you had an extremely bad winter, yeah, there's a chance of losing even a needle palm, the most cold hardy palm. So follow me this way. Okay. And in here we have Camerops humorless palms. These are Mediterranean fan palms. So we had one on the lower deck in a pot, and these are in the ground, and they're totally fine. We have bigger ones in the ground too, so that's Mediterranean fan palm. In the ground, no problem. In a pot,
and this is
a problem.
The storage.
This is storage right now.
This is our tiki.
This is our tiki.
Framed
So this is where we stuff all the plants in here.
Yeah.
Not too bad. It works really well. Wendy and I built this, and that's why there's plastic around it. And what I do is just put a tarp along the front. And there's some of the floats we find on the beach. Lots of floats we find on the beach. All right.